Welcome to the Challenging the Way We Age podcast, hosted by the Mavericks of Senior Living, Francis and Catherine, focusing on creativity, ingenuity, and inspiration to educate and inspire changes in the senior experience, breaking the status quo. We want to thank our supporters, Assured Assisted Living, Serenity App, Sevens Home Care, and Sevens Residential Memory Care. Now get ready for the next episode.
Hey, you Mavericks. Thanks for joining us this morning. We have a great guest with us this morning, Corky Kyle from the Kyle Group. Corky, welcome.
Thank you. It's been great. It's been a while since I've been on the air.
Has it? Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And, of course, Francis Lagasse is here.
Yes. So we're excited. We've been here at Colorado Assisted Living Association's Fall Conference right here in Aurora. It has been going on for the last 2 days. And they have a spring conference as well, too, correct, Corky?
Correct.
Okay, so stay tuned. Start following them. And the website, again, Kathy, is?
CALA, C-A-L-A, online.org. Go check it out. And they have information-packed sessions going on here today and yesterday as well. And, Corky, you are the president of the CALA organization?
I am the chief executive officer of Colorado Assisted Living Association.
All right. So tell us more about that. Tell our audience about your background, who you are, what brought you to this place in life.
Well,
the many roads.
About 5 words. No. It all started. My whole career, for the most part, has been in association management and public policy. And then decided it was time to go ahead and take a bigger interest and make my full-time charge representing people in the legislature. So I've been a professional lobbyist for 38 years, since 1981, as well as I've been in the association management business for a little over 40. I'm a certified association exec. There's 4,400 of us in the country.
So how did you come to CALA, Colorado Assisted Living Association? And tell us a little bit about CALA and what the goal is.
Great. Peter Brissett, who is on my team, handles all our IT stuff and all that for the Colorado Assisted Living Association. He heard about me, asked me to come be a speaker at his Sales Pro breakfast. So I roll in there on a Friday morning and do a whole thing about government affairs. And that's how I got involved with CALA. They had some issues, and they needed somebody to go ahead and represent them as a lobbyist. Because I started out as their lobbyist first before taking over everything, being their exec and lobbyist. Now, the Colorado Assisted Living Association goes ahead and represents, for the most part, the majority of the small homes, assisted living homes in Colorado. 50% of our membership is 20 beds or less.
Interesting.
And the other half is 21 beds or more.
Okay.
But the bulk there are 436 small homes that fit that category that are licensed. We have 672 licensed assisted living homes in Colorado.
Correct, okay.
And over 50% are small homes.
It's almost 75 close, right? 4 out of 6, basically. It sounds like,
exactly.
Give or take. Wow. I didn't realize it was that big of a number.
As a result of that, there's never been a real active voice for small homes.
Right.
And that's why CALA was created. Now, it was created back in 1982. I came in 2004, 2005.
Okay.
So but they've grown because of the need for that representation. The big box places, the ones that got 100+ beds, they've got the resources to go ahead and handle their things. There's other associations that represent assisted living groups. We've got the Colorado Healthcare Association that does nursing homes as well as assisted living.
Correct.
And we have Leading Age, which represents the big box, but also the nonprofit assisted living. And so you've got the three of us are playing in this market, although we are representing the bulk of the industry as a small homes.
Is that where you want to be your niche, per se? Is that in that sub 19 to 20, or is it just happen to fall there?
Well, we started out that way.
Okay.
And as things have changed, we've recognized that we've got to be more resourceful and that we've got to address a bigger audience to bring into our membership.
Right.
So that we better represent the industry as a whole.
I like that. Do you think that becomes a challenge, though, because the needs of a smaller box, like let's say an 8 or 12 or 16 bed, is different than a 100-plus box at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have some
difficulty
challenges.
and that's the issue. That's why we're having the issue is on that the smaller homes, the owners end up being they're the head cook and bottle washer.
Right.
They literally do everything for that home.
Right.
Yep.
So their time is not their own. They do not have much time to spend on outside activity. It gets even scarier when they decide on which market that they are going to go ahead and play in, whether they're going to play in Medicaid,
Right.
or they're going to do private pay. Now, private pay is lucrative from the standpoint you get to charge what you want to charge to cover your expenses and put a little money in your pocket,
Right.
as well as provide a very nice place for that resident. You get over into those homes that specialize in Medicaid. They can only get $2,600 a month. You can't ask for more. You can't do anything. You get $2,600 a month, and that doesn't cover expenses.
No.
And so if you're a small home and you've got 6 Medicaid, you are scrambling.
Right.
The biggest concern is that these are going to go away.
Interesting.
That
And
what's
then
going to go away?
Medicaid beds
Medicaid
continue
beds.
to drop.
Okay.
Why would I want to have an assisted living home that takes care of Medicaid?
I just realized there's different fire regulations for Medicaid versus what the Department of Health has. Like your local.
How is
I don't
that?
know.
That
You
is-
can,
No, it's all over the board. There's no coordination.
There isn't.
Of any of this, but this is it. But
Do you think we're going to see a change with Medicaid? If we can kind of get more into your lobby experience here, do you think we're going to ever have like a tiered Medicaid program or where acuity matters for your reimbursement? Or is it going to be like, this is what it is, deal with it?
well, first of all, Medicaid's the feds.
Okay.
That's the federal government. Nothing happens very quickly, and until we can, and keep in mind with Medicaid, the state determines what the payment is going to be.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The state says this is how much we're going to contribute to Medicaid, and then the feds match it. There are states out there that pay more than $2,600.
Oh.
So it's all over. It's what the state agrees to go ahead and do. Now, Colorado's notorious. They don't want taxes. They don't want increases. They don't want any of this. So we have a very low Medicaid level rate.
Interesting.
Even though we got a 25% increase in that rate 2 years ago. And the unfortunate thing is that we just had a set of new rules and regs come into existence. And as a result of all the new requirements in those rules and regs, that has eaten into that 25% increase, and there's not a whole lot left over. Even to allow them to say that, yeah, we made a little profit this month. So it's a real dilemma. And will it change quickly? Not anytime soon.
Great.
Which is why you better find a long-term care plan, and so that you can go to private pay.
At the government level, are we recognizing that, especially in Colorado, that our seniors, some of them haven't saved very well as the the current generation that's aging? Are we having these wake-up calls that we need to do more as a society to better honor those that are less fortunate, that are older? Because I believe Medicaid and private pay base level care should be identical. That the only time, and then you can a la carte it after that. But right now I feel there's a large discrepancy in care quality between
Absolutely,
the two.
and that's free enterprise. And that's the way it works. And have people saved enough? Absolutely not. Have people thought about it? Of course.
Right.
But when it comes to raising families, children,
True.
Yeah,
sending them to
priorities.
school, and going through recessions, the unknown is
True.
is what we all
It's the great
do.
unknown.
That's right. It's the great unknown. Exactly. So we don't know what it is.
I would say, too, that long-term care insurance does not have a good reputation. So people have not necessarily put money into long-term care insurance because it has a reputation of being a scam, that it costs more than it actually pays out, or that you can't utilize it in some way because of some fine print somewhere. So people haven't really looked to that. So if they don't have savings and they don't have long-term care insurance, they have Medicaid,
No, they have their sons and daughters.
Yeah,
That's true.
In the
Family.
basement.
See,
Yeah.
I have 4 children. My wife we've already told them that so when the time comes, we're going to rotate. You get a quarter each
that's
year.
nice.
Okay,
That's actually a good
I'm going to go
idea.
to daughter for 3 months.
Yeah.
This son for 3 months.
All
This
right.
son for 3 months. This son for 3 months, and then maybe we'll wander away. Who knows?
Right?
But I mean, obviously, I think there is going to be a bigger role of family in all of this. I'm not sure about whether or not long-term care is a viable product. There was a time when that was a very hot product that was very inexpensive, and those that got in on it early definitely had some
That
huge
must have been a sweet spot.
Oh,
So
my
that's
God.
good. That's good. And
but
I
you
think
don't
there's
hear it being
options
used now.
But they're different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and they're getting cut. I mean, more people they're cutting the long-term care insurance from a lot of the providers. There's very few insurance companies that are offering long-term care policies.
I think that's right.
now.
Because I think there are options to put a rider on a life insurance and
There's-
things now that didn't exist before.
What is your biggest challenge as a lobbyist? Because I feel like right now we have these talks, but we don't have them. A lot of people aren't taking it seriously that we have this financial issue for our seniors.
My biggest difficulty is when I work with associations is getting them to understand that being involved in the political, and legislative, and regulatory process is a must.
Interesting.
Because if you don't, then you die.
Wow.
Government controls the quality of your life and the health of your business. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's there. You voted the people in.
Right.
You're a registered voter. You may have voted. You voted. I hope you voted.
I bet.
And I've already put my vote in. I've already done my
The mail-in. I love
I
the
just
mail-in.
got my ballot.
I got my
yesterday.
ballot. I got my ballot 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got that in.
Yeah.
So it's getting them to realize the significant value that can be created once you establish yourself in this process. Because we have 100 legislators in Colorado.
Okay.
We've got 65 representatives and 35 senators. Those people don't know who we are. And that can be said for any industry, okay? If you're a bricklayer, there's an association of bricklayers. There's electricians, same thing.
Right.
There's podcasters. But those people, when legislation is initiated and introduced, where are they going to go to get that information? They're going to come to me. And by me, I mean the lobbying court.
Right.
Because we are the information source. Now, keep in mind, we have term limits in Colorado, and those people only get to stay there 8 years. You know how many years? Well, I just told you how many years I've been
lot
doing
of
it.
years.
38 years. So
More
who's
than
got
8.
the institutional memory, as well as what the culture is?
Oh, that's a good point.
Interesting.
That's us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so as a result of that, we can go ahead and we become resources
Right.
for the legislators because we can tell them what worked and what didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
And we can tell them, yeah, good luck with that because that ain't going to fly. Or this, yeah, if you tweak it here and there and if you go talk to these people. But that's what a lobbyist does. It is a purveyor of information. And they're like a facilitator.
Interesting. Okay.
I can get them over here to talk to these people or over here and talk to these people just so they can get their information. But I also have the responsibility for my client to provide a strong enough argument, depending on what they want done with the legislation, to make that legislator change the status quo, because that's what it boils down to. Is the public policy that's created is just a change in the status quo in which we operate. And legislators will not change their mind if they don't feel that it's a legitimate argument that we need to change the status quo for the better.
Wow. Okay.
And so you ask the question,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's the long answer to it.
No, I didn't realize. I guess I never thought of policy as changing the status quo, but when you say it that way, it makes
That
a lot
is
of
what
sense.
it is. Yeah, really making an impact. And then they have to think through, obviously, all the possible unintended consequences before they can vote for it.
Right.
Because then you're stuck with it until the next round of people come through and try to
Absolutely.
challenge it. That makes perfect sense.
So what would you like to see challenged or changed?
Yeah.
I mean, like, just obviously you have a wealth of knowledge, first off, in this long, amazing history. What would you personally, or even from a lobby standpoint, like to see changed? Or is that a
in
loaded?
this
Or is that
industry.
a loaded question?
Is that in the assisted living?
We'll stick to assisted living for you. Just make it simple.
Well, first of all, I'd like to see less regulation.
Okay.
We don't need it.
Okay.
It's gotten to the point where things are being micromanaged.
All right.
And it's really not being done for the betterment of business. There's only one perspective, and they use that to look at from the standpoint of the residents. And that's a legitimate perspective to look from. But if there's no place where that resident can go because they've just been regulated out of business, what good is it going to do?
It's a great argument.
Okay? So I'd like to see less regulation.
Okay.
I'd like to see maybe a tiered system of legislation here in Colorado that handles the 19 or fewer beds.
Oh.
And then the third, let's say 60 to 30
20 or so, yeah.
and then above.
Interesting.
Several states do that.
That would be cool.
I'd like to see us get back to and re-implement and put a segment in the statute, in Chapter 7 of the Assisted Living, that says before any legislation can be done, an analysis with the business community that it will affect will be done.
That's awesome.
Now, right now, when legislation is done, you can ask for a financial evaluation, but only from the standpoint of what that means, what it's going to cost the state, not the individuals that are affected by it.
I thought it was an actual financial of the interesting.
So, are there any states doing that now?
No,
Okay, so
we could be the first.
we could be the first.
Huh.
That was quick. There may be.
Okay.
There may be, but
Maybe
not
there's
that
some
I'm
recent
aware of.
changes.
I'm
We
gonna-
got 50
you'd
states.
probably
I'm going to
know.
agree with I have not heard of any that revolutionary where they're actually listening to the operators and,
Yeah.
and analyzing how it affects them. It's really all about what does it cost the state. That seems to be the recurring thing for these regulations.
The one lens that they can go through, because
Well,
it's a lot
That's
to
perfect.
collaborate.
The perfect
No,
example.
what bothers me the most is I love our surveyors, but we have to mold to their opinion, not what's necessarily
the right
not
thing
no.
to do.
Well, the right thing to do, but also
Okay.
what the regs are actually written as. They're trained a certain way to interpret. And now we get into the interpretation battle, which then all of a sudden you have to get an attorney involved, because if you're trying to interpret a gray area, that costs everybody a lot of money.
Yeah.
So one other thing is the area and liability.
Okay.
Within the last couple of years, we've seen the general liability for the assisted living homes go up to almost 50%.
Right.
And we just got notification that one of the insureds that does the most of the general liability for assisted is going up 20% this year. And the reason for that is because of the number of lawsuits that are happening.
Correct.
By the trial attorneys. So here the trial attorneys have found another golden goose that they're plucking.
Yes, sir.
They're notorious for doing this.
Yes, sir.
Back in 1992, we rewrote the workers' comp law to limit the damages that could be done.
Oh.
As well as that same year, or the next year, we did a complete tort reform issue here in Colorado that limited that, which finally brought workers' comp people back into the state because our environment was so hideous, all because of the trial attorneys. Unbelievable. And so I'd like to see, we have to do something there to put a cap on what they can sue for the assisted living homes.
So there's a lot of things there that you're challenging, which I think are all really great.
And I think it needed to.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that I'm thinking about. One, the very first thing that you talked about, less regulation, my first reaction was, what about the residents? And yet, I can actually relate that to, I'm on the board for my homeowners association.
Oh, you're
which
a
is,
brave woman.
Well,
I would
my
never
term's
do
almost
that.
up. I don't think I'll be running
Did you
again.
have mimosas or
I
something?
think I had been drinking, I'm not sure.
Okay.
She has a good heart. That's what happened.
I do. I care about where
Otherwise,
I live.
or she had a big ass up here
That's
for
right.
sucker.
That's possible too. And the one thing I have learned is that there are so many rules and regulations in place for us that the idea is to do no harm, to make it so difficult to make change that you really have to want that change, but it's designed to do no harm. And I think that's the perspective there. But doing more harm, and that's the unintended consequence of having too many rules and
You're saying they were
regulations,
designed to prevent harm, but they're really doing more harm because of the unintended
thank
consequences and the micromanagement of
Yes,
all
sir.
this stuff.
Yes,
And that's
I see
notoriously
that
true.
here.
And that's why we need to roll them back.
Yeah.
I think for every new law, we ought to get rid of 20.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
That
So that's a
would be.
good challenge.
That's a good
there
challenge.
we
I
go.
like that.
Challenge stated.
Yes, for
That's
every
a good
You're a
challenge.
brave woman to be on a
My term's almost done. I'm good. When I think too,
Just like sticking pins in your eyes.
right.
Yeah, okay.
about assisted living, I always try to look at it from the family perspective because that's the viewpoint that I can relate to personally. And I think that I can see as a family member all of the rules and regulations in place and how they're hindering. So even as a family member, I can get behind, let's have less regulation. This is about the people that we care for, the people that we love, and you're making it difficult for the people we've hired to do their job, to do what I hired them to do.
I would argue too, what if you could make it more affordable?
Well, that would be nice.
But what if you could though? Because you're
Because
that's-
less regs.
well, no, because of what you're needing, the extra layers you need now to handle all the new regulations. Are you having to hire an additional 1 or 2 people that are not actually care driven, but they're policy or process driven that are just sitting
Or
there?
refocus those people onto things like customer service, like
Correct.
family communication.
It's not a bad idea, but we need to reduce staff because of the fact that
We're
the
running out of
overhead, it's the rules and regs. Not that I want to take anybody's job away, but you really only want to have those people that are necessary to go ahead and let you do the job that you're supposed to do.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And this is so one-sided. Now, this may come across very cold. My wife says I have a cold eye sometimes. But the reality of this is, if there's no homes for somebody to take care of mom or dad,
Doesn't matter what the regs are.
good luck.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer, and Kathy's heard me say this, is I think what we have today in our current senior living model is broken, and that in 10 years it's not going to be what it is today.
Yeah.
We have to make drastic changes
Absolutely.
now. And we're already outdated. I think what we're building today and what we think we are good today is outdated already, and no one wants to talk about that. I'm a firm believer that we're too complacent in what we're doing.
True.
And it scares me.
So if we don't make changes, or if it takes a really long time, what do you see the future as being if we don't get some of these things done soon? What does it look like even in
Well, my
5
big
years?
concern is that we're going to continue to lose Medicaid, regardless of the fact. There will be more people that have to use Medicaid
Right.
than people that can afford private pay. It's just the way life is.
Yep.
There's those that have done really, really well in life and planned and all that, and there's the average person. God love them. They've done everything that they could possibly do, and they're still. And it's just
Still
the luck of the
struggling
draw.
financially, yeah.
Just the luck of the
Or
draw.
they're okay for a couple years, maybe not 15 years.
Right.
That, again, it's
So
how
it's going to
long-
be there, and that's where it needs to focus. Now, how are you going to do that? In Colorado, you can't do it with more taxes. I don't know what the answer is to that.
It's a creative, collaborative solution that has to bring multiple people that are
Different
outside
way
the
of
industry.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to talk about in this industry, but we really, really appreciate the insight and information. So tell us a little bit about the Colorado Assisted Living Association.
Obviously, to maintain our lead in the government affairs arena, also in the education arena with our conferences, also with our online education that we have. We are problem solvers. And so we want the association to be a problem solver for the assisted living people that are practicing in Colorado.
Right.
And those are the big issues. We also want to look at maybe some more in programs, i.e. Better healthcare programs, property and casualty programs, and help the members through their membership to be able to have maybe a little more coverage, a little less premium, and go from there.
Cool.
So those are the things that we've started to talk about.
Tell us a little bit about the Kyle Group and how people can find you.
Well, the Kyle Group, you can find us on the internet, on the web, at thekylegroup.com. Kyle Group is a professional lobbyist firm that represents associations and businesses before the Colorado legislature, before regulatory agencies, and at local government, city councils, and so on like that. We help change public policy one way or the other. We're facilitators. We're educators. And that's what the Kyle Group's all about.
Excellent. Well, we really enjoyed our conversation with you.
This was fun,
today.
guys.
You might have to have you back on to dive.
Yeah.
There's a lot. We barely scratched the surface of some of that.
I'd
stuff.
love to
So
come
much.
back. That would be great.
Okay.
So we appreciate it, and thank you for what you're doing at Kala. It's so needed, and thank you for the continued efforts to have a voice for, especially those smaller assisted living facilities, and also for our seniors that are maybe the low income, because I think that's often they get lost in the noise. So thank you very, very much.
Very, very true. And thank you for all your making the people aware of us.
Great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's our honor.
It's our honor.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening. The Mavericks want to hear from you. Visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Mavericks of Senior Living or mavericksofseniorliving.com and leave us your comments, questions, and ideas for future podcasts.